Hey, this is just a quick disclaimer. This video isn't extensive. It doesn't have all the information. Ultimately, you're responsible for flying your drone and making sure that you know and follow all the laws and regulations wherever you're flying and that you're doing things safely. So just keep that in mind. Remember safety first. It helps keep it's right, it helps keep everything safe, and when everything's safe, everything's more fun. So let's get to it. Hey everyone, my name is Noah. I'm the founder of Skyview Drone Services, and in today's video, we're going to be going over 5 beginner drone pilot mistakes that, a lot of beginner drone pilots make sometimes. So yeah, let's get into it. Tip number 1, a mistake that a lot of new drone pilots make is they don't set an altitude limit for their drone. They don't set a distance limit for their drone, or like an area. Some software you can set an area on the map where you're going to be flying the drone so it never leaves that area. And it's really important that you do these things so that if the drone ever disconnects from the controller, so there's a flyaway that, and for some reason it doesn't return to home, something goes right. It's all about redundancy. So if for some reason this thing goes wrong and this thing goes wrong, as a last resort, the drone should never leave the area you were intending to fly, where you deem safe to fly, right? So that's tip number 1 is for new pilots, is just make sure that you're setting an altitude limit and a distance limit every time you're flying somewhere. Tip number 2 is make sure you're flying within visual line of sight. Most countries, you got to fly within visual line of sight. If you are going to fly beyond visual line of sight, you need usually like a certain level of license, maybe a certificate as well, or something along those lines. So just make sure that you're flying within visual line of sight. It's important because when you're flying visual line of sight, you get to see everything. You get to see any potential obstacles. It allows you to hear if there's any oncoming air traffic, like a low-flying helicopter or plane. So just make sure you're flying within that visual line of sight. It lets you see what's below the drone in case something, again, ideally nothing goes wrong, but if something were to go wrong, you want things to be as safe as possible. You want to have things, redundancy plans in place. So make sure you're within visual line of sight. And if you are going to fly beyond visual line of sight, just make sure you know what's required in your country to do that, and that you're following those rules. And with those, with understanding that, ideally there's experience there too, just to help make things that much safer. Tip number 3 for new pilots, and it's a mistake a lot of new pilots make. So let's make this clear. The tip number 3 is you shouldn't take off right away. And the reason behind this is a mistake a lot of new drone pilots make is they're just so excited to fly. They're not thinking too much about the actual like importance of getting the GPS connection, making sure there's no errors, things like that. They're just excited to fly. They turn the second the controller and the drone connect, they're up in the air. And this just isn't the best way to do things. It's not the safest way to do things, especially long term. If you want to be flying for years and years. The way I do things, and ideally I think the way you should do things, is you turn the controller on first, then you turn the drone on. Most drones these days have GPS, right? So let the drone turn on, let it connect to GPS, and not just the bare minimum for it to establish a home point, but let it get its maximum the full connection. It usually does this in around a minute, like under a minute. Let it connect as many satellites as it can from your location. Let it get that strong connection, right? It helps keep the drone more stable because it allows it to have a more accurate GPS position, right? The more satellites it's connected to. So let it connect to all the satellites. Then a lot of drones have an automatic takeoff. Me personally, I like to do a manual takeoff. Take off, go a few feet up in the air. At least this is what I do. Not everyone does this, but I'd really recommend it just to help keep things as safe as possible for you and for others, and limit the risk, right? And right when you have the least amount of risk and things are as safe as possible, it makes flying the drone more fun and just makes it that much easier to get that stable footage, right? And that's that great footage you're looking for. So I like to launch the drone up a few feet in the air, listen, make sure it's not making any weird noises. I like to observe it, make sure it's not acting weird, doing things it's not supposed to. I like to go, forward, back, side to side, turn up and down. Just make sure everything's working as it should, right? There's nothing's out of the ordinary. then once all that's good, then I'm good to fly, right? I'm just that much more confident that things are gonna go the way they should. So that was tip number 3, is to not take off right away. Let the drone turn on, let it get a stable connection to the controller, let it get a stable connection to the GPS, make sure there's no error codes, things like that. That was tip number 3. Tip number 4 is understand the local laws and regulations, what license you'll need for whatever country you're in. This is really important. All these laws and rules exist for a reason, right? They help keep things as safe as possible. There's a lot of things that you might not think about when you first get a drone, that as you fly, like you'll realize more, and these things are like risk related or anything, right? So, so just make sure that you understand the rules where you are, the laws, what license you need based on the weight of your drone and the type of, like, how close you are to airports and people, things like whatever your country factors. And yeah, just make sure you're familiar with everything, you're following those rules, you get the license you need, right? You'll feel that much more confident with all that stuff, and it's just really important. So make sure you're familiar with all that. And a lot of the time, new pilots, they don't think about is bylaws. Make sure that a lot of people, they like to fly in the park. Well, check the city bylaws of the park, wherever the park is, and make sure that the city, right, the city might not be able to govern the airspace, like that may be at a federal level, but what the city can do is they can prohibit you from taking off and landing and, operating the drone, so using the controller when you're on the like in the bounds of the park, as an example, right, when you're on the city property. So just make sure you're familiar with what licenses you need, the laws of the country, and things like bylaws and things like that. Tip number 5 is read the manufacturer information, read the manual. Usually it's around 10-15 minutes to read it. They're not usually generally super long. If it is longer, again, just take the time to read all the information the manufacturer put there, right? It's there for a reason. They're telling you the best way to do things when you're operating the drone, when you're storing the drone, the batteries, all the things like that, anything related to the drone, right? All that information is there for a reason. And it's a mistake a lot of new pilots make, is they're just so excited to fly that they toss the manual back in the box and they just go out. And again, that's not the way to do things. So make sure that you take the time. Again, it usually doesn't take that long even. Take the time to read the manufacturer information, read the manual. You'll feel that much more confident flying, and it's just really important to do. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed today's video. Hope you found it useful. Hopefully you learned something. There was some new information there, whether you're a new pilot or you've been flying for years. And yeah, again, feel free to give a like on the video. Feel free to subscribe if you want. We're going to be posting more advice, more tips in the future. And yeah, I appreciate everyone for coming through and watching the video. And hopefully we'll see you guys again soon.